Welcome back to ITIL for Unplugged, the show where service management meets real life. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Tyler. And today, we're going beyond the contracts, beyond the dashboards, and, beyond the blame game.
So, last time we talked about supplier chaos, when too many vendors collide and no one takes the fall. That's where SIAM comes in. Service integration and management.
Yep. Not a new tech tool, not just a new org chart. SIAM is a way to coordinate, align, and actually trust your multi-supplier ecosystem.
All right, so what the heck is SIAM anyway? The SIAM body of knowledge defines it as an approach to managing services in a multi-service provider environment. That's the textbook.
But here's the elevator pitch. SIAM makes sure your vendors act like a team instead of a bunch of solo freelancers who've never met.
In a traditional setup, you might have 5, 10, even 20 suppliers. They all deliver something, but no one owns the big picture. So when a service breaks, you get the classic, "That's not our fault."
Or the dreaded, "We met our SLA." Yeah, cool story. Meanwhile, your customer's still offline.
SIAM says, that's not good enough. It flips the model from siloed performance to end-to-end outcomes. It's not about what each vendor did, it's about what the service delivered.
And that's a big shift. You go from managing providers to managing interfaces, outcomes, and shared accountability.
You're basically creating a system where suppliers don't just coexist, they collaborate. SIAM makes that happen by defining roles, responsibilities, data flows, governance layers, the whole integration model.
And we're going to walk you through all of it, step by step, in this episode. Because honestly, if your org is scaling, outsourcing, or going hybrid, SIAM isn't optional.
So let's break down how SIAM actually works. Like who does what, right? The SIAM model has 3 layers: the customer organization, the service integrator, and the actual service providers.
And this is where most people get confused. The customer is the one consuming the service, or the business side, right? They define the goals, the value, the expectations.
Then you've got the service providers. Those are your cloud vendors, software suppliers, outsourcers, all delivering pieces of the puzzle.
And in the middle sits the service integrator, the glue. They manage the interfaces, the contracts, the relationships, everything that lives between providers.
So you're not just hiring vendors, you're also hiring or assigning someone to connect them, align them, and manage their performance as a whole.
Yeah, and that role could be internal or external. You could use a third-party integrator or even build a dedicated SIAM function inside your IT department.
But either way, the model needs structure. You've got things like service governance, business relationship management, and contract and supplier management, all built into that operating layer.
And don't forget the cross-provider processes. Incident, change, release, they all need to work across those suppliers. Otherwise, one change hits and it's like, boom, 5 teams, no coordination.
The SIAM official guide actually has a great diagram that shows this structure. It's kind of like a layer cake. The customer layer defines outcomes, the integrator ensures flow, and the providers deliver the ingredients.
That's actually solid, a service delivery cake. I'm going to use that next time I explain this to executives.
But seriously, this model forces you to think in terms of service lines, not silos. You start focusing on how the services perform together, not just individually.
Exactly. Because the business doesn't care which vendor caused the outage. They care if email works, if the website loads, if the apps are up. That's why this structure matters.
All right, so we talked about the 3-layer structure. But let's go a bit deeper into how the SIAM operating model actually works day to day.
Yeah, because it's not just about stacking roles. It's about defining how people, processes, and tools actually connect. Otherwise, it's just, boxes on a PowerPoint.
In the official body of knowledge, they break the model into 3 governance levels: strategic, tactical, and operational.
And each of those layers has its own forums, decisions, and communication rhythm. So at the strategic level, you've got long-term goals, sourcing strategy, investment plans, that kind of thing. The executives live here.
Tactical is more about aligning services to business needs, like quarterly reviews, supplier roadmaps, capacity plans. You're still planning, but it's closer to the field.
And then operational. Boom! That's where the action is. Daily coordination, incident escalation, service requests, all the workflows and firefighting.
And for this to work across multiple suppliers, you need clear responsibility models. That's where things like a RACI matrix come in. Who's responsible? Accountable? Consulted? Informed?
And if you skip that, welcome to everyone thinks someone else is doing it. Which, by the way, is how outages last way longer than they should.
Escalation paths are another big one. Like, if an issue spans 2 providers, how fast can it escalate across both without hitting a brick wall?
SIAM makes sure escalation chains are mapped, aligned, and rehearsed. It's not call the vendor representative and hope. It's follow this predefined cross-organization path.
It's also about communication layers. You've got operational bridges, war rooms, governance boards, each tuned to the right level of detail and decision-making.
And when it's all wired properly, you get what the guide calls coordinated service delivery. Not perfect, but predictable, measurable, and way less chaotic.
So, Tyler, we've laid out the layers, the integrator, the roles. But here's the thing. Even with all that in place, SIAM can totally fail if the underlying mindset isn't there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can have the perfect RACI chart, a slick dashboard, weekly status calls, but if everyone's playing defense, it's just like structure without spirit.
That's why the SIAM official guide places so much emphasis on principles. And they're not just fluffy ideas, they're what holds the whole system together when pressure hits. First big one, service orientation. That means shifting your lens from what does each supplier do to what service are we actually delivering? Like zooming out from the parts to the outcome.
It's like, imagine running a food delivery app. You've got separate vendors for GPS, payment, logistics, support, but the customer just wants their burger. If the GPS fails or the payment gateway times out, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. The service failed.
That mindset changes how you contract, how you monitor performance, even how you handle incidents. You stop managing functions and start managing experiences.
Second principle, collaboration over competition. Now, this one hits hard because in most supplier setups, vendors kind of compete. They protect their turf, don't want to look bad, and honestly, they don't always play nice.
Yeah, like that time we had 3 providers involved in a shared infrastructure, and during an outage, they were literally sending us PDF screenshots of uptime logs to prove it wasn't their fault.
I remember. And none of them were wrong. But the service was still down. SIAM says, instead of competing, let's measure joint outcomes. If one fails, we all fail. That's how you drive shared ownership.
And that leads right into the third principle, trust and transparency. Without trust, you get data hoarding, vague reports, surprise outages. And transparency isn't just monthly reporting, it's real-time flow of truth.
I've seen setups where every vendor shows green on the dashboard, but end users are still complaining. That's what happens when people report what looks good, not what's really going on.
And SIAM governance has to call that out. If your service integrator doesn't have full visibility into performance, into risks, into action plans, then you're not managing, you're just watching it all fall apart in slow motion.
And speaking of management, the final pillar is governance. And let's be clear, this isn't just steering committees and policies. It's how decisions get made and stuck to across multiple organizations.
You need structure at all 3 levels. Strategic, where the business goals live. Tactical, where planning and alignment happen. Operational, where service lives and dies every single day.
And those layers, they need to be connected. If your ops team knows about a performance issue, but your tactical team never sees the trend, nothing changes. Escalations die in the void.
That's why SIAM principles aren't optional. They're not nice to haves. They're the glue that keeps the whole thing from turning into siloed chaos.
Yeah, like, it's not enough to say we have a service integrator. If that integrator isn't building trust, aligning people, and focusing on services, you're just adding another layer of noise.
So if you're building a SIAM model, start here. Ask yourself, are we focused on services, not just vendors? Are our providers collaborating or protecting turf? Is our reporting honest or filtered? Do our decisions actually move across layers?
Because if the answer is no, you don't need more dashboards. You need to revisit the why of SIAM in the first place.
All right, so let's bring this full circle. Remember Islarico? That fictional Caribbean island with 5 different suppliers running their energy system? Well, we're going back. But this time, with SIAM lenses on.
Yeah, just to recap, Gridco owns the grid, Voltops runs the generation, Sparklink manages transmission and distribution, FuelSys handles combustible supply, and Energov sets the regulations. And yet, when the power goes out, nobody really owns the outcome.
Now imagine if Islarico had a proper SIAM model. First, they'd need a clear customer organization, maybe the Public Utility Board, defining what reliable power means, what the expectations are, and how success is measured.
Then they'd assign or contract a service integrator. This could be a trusted internal entity or an external third party. But they'd need authority, tooling, and access to every layer of the ecosystem.
And most importantly, they'd coordinate the service providers. No more Sparklink doing its own thing while Gridco blames FuelSys for supply issues. Instead, you'd have cross-provider visibility, shared metrics, and one common definition of success.
So what would that actually look like? First, they'd need to implement cross-supplier incident management. If a blackout occurs, there's a predefined response flow. Doesn't matter who owns the failure point. Everyone engages immediately.
Same with change enablement. Let's say Voltops wants to bring a new turbine online. That change would be reviewed with Sparklink, Gridco, and even FuelSys to ensure there's no ripple effect. SIAM makes sure changes are not just approved, they're understood end-to-end.
And don't forget problem management. 1 blackout is an incident. 3 blackouts, that's a problem. With SIAM, root cause analysis becomes collaborative, not finger-pointing. You'd have Voltops, Gridco, and Sparklink all contributing data and aligning on fixes.
And then there's request fulfillment. Say Energov needs real-time capacity reports every week. Instead of chasing 5 different suppliers, they'd request it through a centralized SIAM portal. One touchpoint, one flow, regardless of which provider delivers it.
This is also where ITIL and SIAM really shine together. ITIL brings the process rigor, structured change, well-defined incidents, strong problem management. SIAM layers integration, cross-accountability, and governance over those processes.
Exactly. It's not about replacing ITIL, it's about enabling it to scale across multiple suppliers. And the maturity model in SIAM? That gives Islarico a roadmap. Start with basic coordination, evolve to collaborative governance, and eventually reach proactive service orchestration.
But for that to happen, the service integrator must be empowered. Not just a middleman, but a decision maker. They'd need access to tools, contracts, metrics, and escalation paths. Otherwise, you're just adding another layer of complexity.
So Islarico's lesson? Complexity isn't the enemy. Mismanaged complexity is. And SIAM doesn't remove complexity. It organizes it. It gives it structure. And when paired with ITIL, it becomes something powerful.
Something that turns 5 disconnected suppliers into one reliable service. All right, let's zoom out. We've talked theory, structure, real-world chaos, but now let's get practical. What do you actually get when SIAM works?
For starters, clarity. Instead of vendor noise and dashboard confusion, you get one version of truth. A clear picture of how services perform, who's responsible, and where the risk really is.
Then there's accountability. With a strong integrator and shared goals, no one can hide behind contracts or blame the other guy. You get unified service outcomes, not just siloed activity.
And that leads to faster recovery, because now when something breaks, everyone knows the escalation path. You're not stuck waiting for 5 different vendors to schedule 5 different war rooms.
But there are pitfalls too. Like, if you underfund the integrator role, they won't have authority. If you skip governance forums, conflicts fester. If you set the wrong KPIs, you get gaming, not collaboration.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the biggest risks is trying to do everything at once. SIAM maturity takes time. It's okay to start small, as long as you start right.
So, if you're thinking about SIAM, here's a place to begin. Map your service providers. Look at your cross-processes, incident, change, request, problem, and ask, where are the gaps?
Then ask who's filling them. If the answer is no one, or 5 different people depending on the day, that's your signal to build an integration layer. Whether it's internal or third-party, someone has to own the flow between the players.
Also, check your culture. If vendors are in competition mode, or if your teams don't trust each other, SIAM won't fix that overnight, but it will reveal it. And that's the first step to change.
And if you've got strong ITIL practices already, you're halfway there. SIAM doesn't replace ITIL, it connects it. It stretches those processes across organizational boundaries where they matter most.
So what's next? In our next episode, we'll dive into building your SIAM capability from the ground up. What roles you need, what tools help, what makes or breaks early adoption.
And we'll bring real examples too, not just Islarico. So if you've been thinking, this sounds great, but where do I even begin? That's the episode for you.
Until then, stay aligned, stay accountable, and remember,
You're not managing vendors, you're delivering services.